All right. Today, we're going to be talking about something that, honestly, a lot of us probably avoid thinking about.
Yeah, end of life care.
It's not the easiest subject, right?
Yeah.
But it's really important. If you're the kind of person who likes to be prepared, who likes to be informed, then understanding this stuff is key.
Absolutely.
So think of this like your crash course in end-of-life care. We're going to be looking at how to have those conversations. We're
Yeah.
going to be looking at all the important documents you might need, all the things you need to think about. And to help us do that, we're using some great guidance from the National Institute on Aging.
Yeah, I think it's worth emphasizing that this isn't about doom and gloom. This is about empowerment. Like, life is unpredictable.
Right.
And having a plan is kind of like a safety net, right? It means that even if something happens and you can't speak for yourself, your wishes are still going to be followed.
Exactly. And that's a really important point because, I mean, none of us can predict the future. Illnesses come out of nowhere.
Absolutely.
When people know what you want, what kind of care you want, how you want things to be handled, it makes a world of difference. Because imagine, you're in a situation where you can't make your own medical decisions.
Yeah.
Your family, your friends, even the doctors, they're left trying to figure out what you would have wanted.
It's incredibly stressful.
So difficult. And it can lead to arguments,
Yeah, for sure.
disagreements within families.
Without a doubt.
And, it's not about giving up or anything like that.
Right.
It's about being thoughtful. The guidance actually compares it to other kinds of planning we do in life, like retirement planning, estate planning.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You planned your career, your finances, your home. So why not plan for your health care in the future, especially when you might not be able to make those decisions for yourself? It's really an act of love for the people you care about. So we know why it's important. The big question is, how do you actually start having these conversations?
It can be a bit daunting.
It is.
Where do you even begin?
Schedule a time to talk.
Don't just spring it on someone.
Exactly. Make it a dedicated conversation, not something you bring up while you're doing the dishes or something. They also say, prepare some questions beforehand.
Yeah, that's helpful. It keeps things on track.
Yeah.
And make sure you cover the important points.
Right. And the guidance even gives an example of how you might start the conversation. Something like, if something happened to you, it'd be really important to me that your wishes were followed. Can we talk about what's important to you, what you'd want if you couldn't make your own medical decisions?
Right.
It's straightforward, but it's also sensitive.
Absolutely.
And what if the person you're talking to, what if they haven't really thought about it much, or they're not really sure what they want? They point to some great online resources. There's the Conversation Project.
Oh, I've heard of that.
They got this step-by-step guide for these discussions.
Right.
And then there's the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization. They've got loads of resources on serious illness and figuring out what you want for your care.
Excellent. So there's help out there.
You're not on your own.
Right.
There's help out there to guide you.
Absolutely. So once you start having these conversations, naturally the question comes up, well, how do you actually make this official?
Yeah, how do you actually make sure your wishes are known and respected?
Exactly.
Well, that's where end-of-life care documents come in. They're often called advance directives.
Right.
Documents that lay out your preferences for medical care if you become unable to make those decisions yourself.
They're like your healthcare instruction manual.
Exactly.
For when you can't speak for yourself.
Yeah. And there are two main parts to this. First, there's the healthcare agent, or proxy. You might also hear it called power of attorney for healthcare.
Right.
This is where you choose someone you really, really trust to make medical decisions for you if you can't. It's so important.
It really is.
And then there's the living will. Now, the word will might make you think of money and stuff, but this is all about your medical treatments. It's a list of what you do and don't want. So you can be very clear about things like ventilators, feeding tubes, all those life-sustaining treatments.
It's also important to remember that depending on where you live, there might be specific rules about these documents.
Like what kind of rules?
Like they might need to be witnessed by a certain number of people.
Okay.
Or they might need to be officially notarized. It's definitely worth checking the rules in your own state or region.
That's a good point. And here's a distinction between advanced directives being legally recognized and them being legally binding.
Oh, that is interesting.
It's a bit subtle, but it's important. What do you make of that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So it means they're not like absolute legal mandates,
Yeah.
They can't be followed in every single situation. The American Bar Association, and they basically say that doctors have a real duty, ethically and often legally, to respect your wishes about treatment, even if they're not written down in a formal way.
Okay.
As long as those wishes are medically appropriate, of course.
Of course.
But there can be exceptions.
Like what?
Well, a doctor might have a deep personal objection to something you've requested. Or they might think the treatment just wouldn't be medically appropriate for you at that time.
Okay, so they wouldn't be forced to do something that they felt was wrong.
Exactly. But in those cases, they have to help you find another doctor who will honor your wishes.
Right. So while advanced directives aren't, like, set in stone in every possible scenario, they carry a lot of weight.
Absolutely. They should be taken very seriously. They tell people what you want,